Our next witness, Mr. Joe Robson. He's the president of the Robson Companies, a builder of residential and commercial properties in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. Mr. Robson is testifying on behalf of the National Association of Home Builders. The National Association of Home Builders has represented more than 800 state and local home builder associations since its founding in 1972. Welcome, sir.
Great. Thank you, Chairman Velasquez. Ranking Member Graves and members of the committee. The current housing recession is the worst since World War II. Housing starts are down 80% since January of 2006, and virtually every housing indicator reached an all-time low in the last 2 quarters. And while there are glimmers of hope that the 3-year decline in housing may have stabilized, there remain significant obstacles to recovery, including excess inventory, foreclosures feeding this inventory, continued downward pressure on home prices, constricted mortgage lending and low appraisals, and difficult financing terms and limited availability for acquisition, development, and construction loans. I am pleased to report that the first-time home buyer tax credit is having a demonstrably positive effect on housing demand. NHB estimates that 200,000 additional home sales are attributable to the tax credit and resulted in an increase of 187,000 jobs. And as the November 30th deadline for the program approaches, NHB urges extending and enhancing the tax credit. In particular, NHB recommends extending the sunset date until December 1st, 2010, and expanding the eligible buyer definition to include all purchasers of a principal residence. We estimate that these enhancements would increase home purchases by 383,000 in the next year, increase housing starts by 82,000, and create more than 347,000 jobs. On the topic of appraisals, there are increasing complaints of real estate appraisers using foreclosures and other distressed sales as comparables in determining values of single-family homes without properly adjusting the comparable property values to reflect the relative condition of the properties. Further appraisal problems have been exacerbated due to the unintended consequences that resulted from the implementation of the Home Valuation Code of Conduct, which has called into question the experience and qualifications of appraisers. NHB strongly supports the intent of the HVCC. However, we also strongly believe that additional clarifications and reforms are needed in order for the HVCC to work effectively. Further, federal agencies and those that establish appraisal requirements for home mortgages should require appraisers to obtain sufficient information and make appropriate adjustments in the prices of comparable sales. Another persistent problem for home builders is the availability of credit for acquisition, development, and construction, or AD&C loans. Banks increasingly refuse to extend new AD&C credit or to modify extending or outstanding AD&C loans in order to provide builders more time to complete their projects and pay off these loans. As a result, more builders are being required to put up additional equity or collateral due to reappraisal of collateral or reevaluation of their loan. Since most home building companies are small businesses and do not have the capacity to meet significant equity calls, the result is often foreclosure on a loan that had been performing. This places more foreclosed properties on the market, blunting the housing recovery. NHB is urging members of Congress to tell the federal banking regulators to put a halt to these short-sighted practices. Lastly, I want to raise a recent development having to do with the Small Business Administration's ARC program. As you know, NHB testified in support of this program in front of this committee this past summer. And at that time, we were hopeful that ARC would help many of NHB's members to stay afloat. Unfortunately, home builders are being told by bankers and SBA field staff that their businesses are not eligible for this assistance. We urge the committee to encourage the SBA to revisit the way it views home builders and to reconsider the eligibility requirements for ARC program loans. Thank you, and I look forward to answering questions.
Thank you, Mr. Robson. Our next witness, Mr. Michael B. Pryor, is the President and CEO of